Is this the time to buy or sell Bitcoin? First off, read this disclaimer carefully. And do your good deed of the day by liking and subscribing. Here is Bitcoin / the US dollar. 40% here from the low, but we are still minus 41% away from the 52-week high, which is double the criteria of a bear market. So this is the long-term picture for Bitcoin weekly data points. So it is a bit messy because we clearly have these, major time cycles here. There was the potential that this rising price action was, the beginning of a major time cycle. Maybe it is, but we haven't seen much in terms of the upside. This has been very much sabotaged by the bears. A very key event definitively was this green 50-week moving average. It was very good support. The bulls used the opportunity, but the bears, they are not stupid. They fully realized if we can flip that from support to resistance, then there are tremendous potentials for bears. So this is a very dangerous situation here for the bulls. It just is. They have lost a very important moving average. When we go here to the daily data points, the key battleground here is this red 200-day moving average, which has become surgical resistance. I mean, just look at how clean this short was. Short Bitcoin. And it's been working out pretty well. So this is not good. Another thing here, which just shows us how ambitious the bears are. The blue 100-day moving average has become this other level where it is very clear that the bears come in big. So yeah, this is dangerous for the bulls. You could argue that the bears have pushed the bulls down into this. Well, okay, wrong color. Let's use the right color. Colors are super important. So you see that this is a zone where there is a tendency for bulls to buy, Bitcoin quote unquote on sale. So that is the potential bullish thing I see in an ocean of a lot of bearish signals. To be clear, you could argue this is a buy signal on the MACD. Some would interpret it as that. Looking at RSI, we are in a low level that has a tendency to be bought, so that's potentially interesting. The PPOs are very much in the neutral zone. If we go here to the daily data points, the thing is that RSI and the 20-day PPO, it is at a low level that has a tendency to be bought, but it is not, unfortunately, at like an extreme buy level. So the situation we have for Bitcoin is let's certainly 100 DMA resistance, which is bearish in terms of the technicals. So the thing is that the bears have already broken down Bitcoin a lot. So they have already had a bunch of wins, and they have pushed bulls into a zone where the bulls have a bit of a tendency to look at it's a value territory for Bitcoin. So I will give this one to the bears, but I think I will only give the bears a -2, simply because they already have big wins. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe relax a bit and see how the bulls react to this horizontal buy zone. If the bulls do not, however, step up the buying, then the bears will become way more ambitious. Here is the seasonality data for Bitcoin. yeah, this is not good news for the bulls at least, because the coming seasonality is very much bearish towards mid-July. Then we have a tendency to see a bit of a sharp rise. Looking to the left, over the last 5 years, April is a decent month, but May and June are rather weak. Looking at the last 10 years, we do see that May usually is a rather strong month. So it does close higher 75% of the time. So let's investigate May a bit further here to the right. Here is at the beginning of May, the 1st of May. So you can see here to the right, in terms of the average price action in green here over the last 5, and in blue over the last 7 years, we do see something very different. One of the issues with Bitcoin is that it is very volatile. So let me just illustrate how just 1 year can make a huge difference. So let's see here. So to the left, we are looking at the last 6 years, and looking at that time frame, the average performance for May is 17%. Obviously, that's good. But when we make a slight change to 5 years, all of a sudden it collapses to 3% average performance for May. So it goes to show you how really messy the seasonality for Bitcoin is. And this is also true for other securities that can have very explosive moves up or also down. Yeah, just changing 1 year on the seasonality tool all of a sudden is like a huge game changer. To give the seasonality a bit of a rating here, I think I will lean a bit on the data we got from stockcharts.com, because then we got 9 years of data. So I do think I will give this one to the bulls, because it could be decent. But because the seasonality data is so messy, I will only give the bulls a 1. As I have said before, I don't believe there are fundamentals when it comes to Bitcoin that actually have a predictive value in terms of the price. So I don't think there's any point, at least in real time, right here and now, to do like a fundamental analysis based on the fundamentals of Bitcoin. They are just simply way too disconnected. Okay, so when we look here at relative performance, long term, there is a 90% positive correlation with the S&P 500. We do see that there's a 92% with Ethereum and 72% with ARK-K, the innovation ETF, and minus 51% with the dollar index. Short term, 66% with S&P 500, 93% with Ethereum, and 87% with ARK-K. And ARK-K, it is a more higher beta, higher risk ETF. So it goes to show us that this strong-ish correlation, well, it is actually rather strong. It is very clear that Bitcoin is a risk asset. Minus 30% here with dollar index. So looking short and long term, let's just look at ARK-K. We could, of course, look at Ethereum, but the link between Ethereum and Bitcoin is just too obvious, I think. It's, of course, interesting to look at, but yeah, so here is ARK-K. Yeah, and yeah, it is really struggling to attract at least longer term bulls. We do have some bounce bulls that appear every now and then, but then they take their gains and run away. We are very low still in terms of the RSI and the PPO. MACD sent a bit of a buy signal here, but yeah, when we go here to the daily data points, we are below, all moving averages. It's just a messy situation, because on the one hand, when I look at a chart like this, especially longer term, then it looks a bit dangerous as a short as well, because it is already low. This is one of those situations where, if you go big on your short, all of a sudden you can get, killed in the pre-market. Then again, it isn't really giving me any confidence, from a bullish perspective either, so it's just in limbo. When looking at, securities, charts, it's very easy to get into the logical fallacy of assuming that there will always be some momentum move up or down. But a lot of times it can be just noisy. It essentially is going to move sideways, or you could just have these time cycles that essentially mean up and down, up and down, up and down. It's because of the rarity of high momentum moves that I have a bit of a gravitation towards buying lows and selling highs, because looking at a broader range of securities, that works far more frequently than trying to pick the next high momentum move, because they just, statistically speaking, are rare. It is rare to have one move that keeps feeding itself, because that would be too easy, and the market isn't structured like that. But those few times where you do have a very high momentum move, it certainly gets a lot of attention. But then you need to look at a long list of possible alternative investments, and then you will see that the overwhelming majority do not have those moves, at the time at least. So anyway, here is the relationship between Bitcoin and ARKK, and we do see that Bitcoin has massively outperformed ARKK for quite some time. So that's interesting. If we go here to seasonality data, so let's look here at the dailies. Okay, so it certainly seems that going forward, Bitcoin has a strong. Let's now look at the relationship between, let's take ARKK and the S&P 500. So we go to the weekly data points. Yeah. Well, instead of looking at ARKK, let's just take the small caps, because we have looked a bunch at the ARKK. So like that. Because the small caps, they are also a risk of investor risk appetite. So yeah, small caps are a risk indicator, and we do see a monstrous rounding topping pattern. So let me just draw that in. This is a monster rounding top. So that is, it's bearish. But this is also a rounding top that is rather close to the lows as well. So obviously there could be more downside. But it's one of those situations where so a rounding top is best to short after a rally. We are currently close to the lows, so it makes it just a bit it's more noisy. But yeah, rounding tops, they are obviously bearish. Looking here at the daily data points, so here we had a big impulse move from the bulls, then the bears fight back. What I do find a bit interesting here, it's a bit, we do have a tendency to have these double bottoms. So this one here, double bottom, it worked out really well. This looks a bit double bottom-ish. So that's something that, so let's look at the seasonality. Does it corroborate double bottom? And well, over the last 10 years in red and the 7 years in blue, we usually have more underperformance from the small caps heading towards early May, but then we have outperformance. Over the last 5 years, we usually have outperformance here from small caps leading up until mid-August. So that's interesting, especially in the context of this double bottom. So we see that ARKK, it's a bit of a mess. Then again, it is at a low level. We do see that Bitcoin has been outperforming ARKK, so that's interesting. So I do think I will give this one. Yeah, I think I will give the ones Yeah, I give a 1 to the bulls, but that is not much at all. So we do end up with a score here of 0, but there's a caveat, and that is that the trigger, main event at the moment is 100 daily moving average resistance. So essentially, the bears, they do have a bit of an edge in this situation. The problem for the bears, however, is that they have already had big gains, made a lot of progress. We have now gone all the way down to this buy zone for the bulls. So yeah, I do think that the bears are just going to wait and see, how the bulls react. But if we do not see a sharp increase in buying from the bulls at these levels, then we could see the bears become very, very ambitious. So even though we currently are in a zone that could potentially be boring in terms of price action initially, there could be very explosive moves based on how the price action is interpreted, because the interpretation here will be very binary. Either it will be like that, the bulls are going to try again, or simply that there's not really any bulls waiting to buy. They are too skittish, and if they are, I guarantee you the bears are really going to become super ambitious. Whatever you do, of course, you want to use stops and be market neutral and get VIP access.